abusuya we dey minchi na misan so emu akwa abem na channel so abusuya ba betodwa se eyade chief of staff abusuya chese wayi enkofo 534 abusuya start to be corrected waji omu adi yes waji omu adi abusuya we dey ma mekasa wa mekasa tete pese ko na yetie ensem aba abonten yes yetie ensem nemu ankasa enchire mu enkofo 534 die na sie die na ba ye die mpa na asia eno nti yatumi ayi sankofo we yina adi abusuya yetie na sese ha eda so aye be media je chabse bese wase ena ni dedi kwanu channel so ni die kwan so ye bese wase be subscribe be like na abusuya wa bo aso a share ma for person bi atie no anya bi atie yetie nkoma ba bonten afa chief of staff from sese
Chief of Staff Julius Debrat Committee omayi nipa 534 di INPP aban employees Akroma na after the December 7 election of 2024 wo be kaya February 2025 na Chief of Staff this statement said that will be a fine aduma from 7 December 2024 ye revoking appointment revoking appointment a lot of issues by the Chief of Staff at the committee say committee no nkotrase no be a petition or there over 30 institutions raising issues any idea individuals they be court any idea and committee no the findings about. I have a lot of things to say about findings now about fellow scratch off so and no news no breaking news on Nipano no me 2080 of them and ye 534 edi adentina sanko for the year omedi omo pass what did they go through for them to pass I reinstated and I'm the one critical analysis. Make sure so best subscribe them. I'm also subscribe click bell notification with the video be tomorrow. You will certainly have a comment. Feel free leave that comment in the comment section. Or we are app any Play Store, pan rate or any of this send this can be. If you have to compare the rate of the major meeting platforms, will be had them rare resting in your tata send will be had our app on so certainly the top airtime a to the we are no covering pomba have consult or trauma related issues, aged care, addiction related issues. Opano mami new program shoma obrempomba obedi si adwuma ni nyina ma owia adansie sibi sa say ahun kraka sa ni bia peso ye bia goldberry they are the expert to meet mo sikitu e bi later no biebiem na bia su 10 bedroom no so a goldberry e be ni nyina e de ama ye kwato aba 7 December na ndis na wini aba mo kai aba transition no fellow scratch for so kasama president ka se mesremo se mo ye recruit bi MPP aba mo ko munyai February, abandoning winning election as President Mama na Chief of Staff Julius Debrat so obi a ya appointed the 7 December ye yinedi. Omuyi omedino ebi antro mo ase the petitions or institutions to be internally had issues. So they went back to the Chief of Staff. Chief of Staff the committee. What are the findings of the committee, TV?
Samson, I'm sure you follow the post-election transition closely. So on the very first day of our first meeting, it came to light that some significant recruitments were happening in the aftermath of the elections, and also some significant monies were being paid to government contractors and other creditors. So the incoming government side of the transition requested a move because of the time frame within which it was being done and the implications that it will have for government finances when we take over. It was fair that the government side share this with us and allow us to review it together so that we know exactly where things stand. Now, this was rebuffed despite our entreaty. So you recall that on 17 December 2024, I issued a statement on behalf of the incoming government side of transition, indicating that we were going to review these processes and look into them to ensure that they complied with due process. True to that, in February 2025, the Chief of Staff issued a directive that all those who were recruited within that period should have the appointment revoked pending investigations. Shortly after that, we also received a significant number of petitions from people who said that, as far as they were concerned, they had gone through due process to be employed, and yet they had been affected by this directive. So the Chief of Staff set up what he called a revocation committee, made up of representatives from government, organized labor, and other important stakeholders. We read out the terms of reference, so there's no point in belaboring it. Now, in order to determine whether an employment, recruitment, promotion, or appointment was lawful, about 8 to 9 steps should have been followed. The first is that there should be evidence that the vacancy was declared. The vacancy was declared for everybody to know that there was such a vacancy. Number 2, it should be advertised in daily newspapers and other media. Number 3, there should be an approved scheme of service which determines who does what and what the organization structure looks like. We should have what we call technical clearance. Then financial clearance, which means that government should be in a position to pay, or government should indicate its readiness to pay the person once employed. Then there should be an interview, some screening or vetting process to determine the suitability of the individuals for employment. And then you are issued an appointment letter if you are successful, and then you indicate your acceptance. In some instances, if you had already been employed, you can show a pay slip. That is, if you started receiving payment before the work of the committee. So, in all, about 36 organizations appeared before the committee. Together, they showed that they had revoked the appointment of 2,080 people. So the committee looked at each case with a fine comb, went through it, and found that 1,201 of such cases should be reinstated because they went through due process. They met all these requirements. Indeed, what the committee said was that if you met 80% of these 8 to 9 requirements that I have just highlighted, you could be given a pass to continue. So it is possible that they may not have declared a vacancy, or that it would not have been advertised. But at the very least, there was financial clearance, there was technical clearance. You went through some vetting process. So 80% of it is fine. Those who did not meet this threshold were the ones whose appointments were revoked. You know, like I said, 879 should have been affected, but we have to give some special consideration to persons living with disability who were predominantly in the education sector. In order that, because of their peculiar circumstances, they do not suffer. And then 534 or so were asked or had their appointments revoked. So this essentially is what it is. It is a reflection of government's desire to be fair and principled. Again, let me indicate that this was not done with malice. It had no political motive whatsoever, because indeed we could not even determine the political collaboration of any individual. Nobody requested that anybody should where they belong in terms of the political divide. But it is necessary that we do the right things. In fact, I recall that in the 2017 transition, the NPP side in fact demanded similar regard. I recall Mr. Osafumafo, who chaired the side of the transition team, insisting that all payments should be put on hold and that no such recruitment should be done. When we requested him, we were told that the government's mandate did not end with the election. That is true. But given that the transition period is so short, and an incoming government was coming in, and that recruiting people has an impact on the wage bill, which the incoming government has to foot, it is necessary that this is done transparently and that we know what is happening. So perhaps going forward, we should incorporate this in our arrangements to make sure that we don't go on this route. It does not help. What you need to do is to indicate it in your transition bill that we started the process. This is where we are. This is the criteria that has been set. This is the number of people who have applied. This is the process that we've gone through up to this stage. What do you make of it? Or you may want to continue? Because mind you, the incoming government comes with its own priorities, its own set of, its own agenda, and its own set of expenditure patterns that it believes will help prosecute the very commitments that it has made to the people of Ghana. So for me, in a nutshell, this is what it is: a straightforward, fair, just process that has been undertaken to uphold the rule of law. The time of the completion of the job or the release of the committee's work appears to coincide with a decision of the Labour Division of the High Court, where even though the conclusion was a consent judgment in respect of the Ghana Maritime Authority, where some people who suffered this had, been sort of reinstated, about 9 of them, as we understand. Is this intended, because we know many of them had taken the matter to court, is this intended to preempt? Oh, not at all. There have been legitimate public inquiries about the state of that investigation, the state of that committee. So I have received many in my capacity as a Minister of State for Government Communications. And at some point, we're always going to go to the public with the findings. That was all it was intended to do anyway. It's also imperative that people are not kept in abeyance. People are not kept in suspense, because this is about people's livelihoods. That's right. People look forward to obtaining employment so that they can earn income. You cannot keep them perpetually in the state of abeyance.
Right.
Again, as for that, people will go to court. It is their right to do so. If you feel aggrieved by any act of government, any act of any state agency, you are free to go to court. Once the court rules one way or the other, government has no option than to comply with it, unless, of course, we have strong basis to believe that we can seek judicial review of that. Let me also clarify Because since I presented the report, these questions have come in. People have sought to find out, so what will happen after this? What will simply happen that the organizations that are concerned will write to the individuals concerned, both those who have been reinstated and those whose appointments have been revoked, telling them clearly why it is so. If anybody feels aggrieved, they are always allowed to seek redress elsewhere. And once a binding ruling is made, government will be bound by it and act accordingly.
All right. Yes. Okasawi, a minority spokesperson, former technical advisor to Dr. Omubamia, MP for Wale Tia Kabir, Enso panel, no kaya on the side of the MP, Promsomonia Abana Day, a boy appointment if November, you may didn't or more cantiri.
We do not in any way support impropriety. That if processes leading to recruitment of persons were found to be inappropriate, we cannot be seen in the spirit of the laws of the country to be supporting, quote unquote, any illegality. Especially so when said recruitment process is supposed to be open, transparent, to give every Ghanaian an opportunity to be recruited. However, we were fortified in our position because we were of the view, and as events have come to vindicate us, that the whole directive was wrong. It was self-inflicted, and then the chaos that it threw these particular supposed employees or young Ghanaians into was unwarranted, because you could have even achieved the same objective without necessarily issuing a directive in the Brazilian manner in which it was done, showing a complete use of government power to show that, okay, we will do as we like. But let me first and foremost note that the outcome of the committee's report, if it's what Mr. Felix has told us, is what transpired. To the greatest, I'll say it is fair that people were given opportunity to be heard. Those people made their case before the committee assessed the criteria and came to a very transparent and a very acceptable determination of the issue. So to that extent, I'll commend the committee. But to start with, it was not necessary. They could have actually achieved the same objective without necessarily going for. You see the cost of what they have done. Apart from saving the country of some 500 people, they have also allowing some 1,204 persons or more to sit down at home without doing anything, and they're going to get salary for 1 year. That's the meaning of it. You see, but these people could have been contributing to the national economy. They could have been contributing to the workforce once these processes are going. And if it's found out that it is legitimate for the period that he has worked for, you could have, even if the employment was illegitimate, probably you could have actually demanded that the basis for the employment was not good, so you're not entitled to anything. Those parameters could have been determined. So I think that this should be a lesson to all of us politicians, that when you get power and you feel that there's something wrong with recruitment, they feel that there's something wrong with any sector of the country, that after elections people are rushing and scrambling to take certain positions and to take certain resources of the country, that you feel stronger about it. You must do that within the laid down procedure, mindful of the fact that any decision you are going to take is going to incur a cost, or there's going to be a cost element to the state. In any case, I want to note that the minister is clear with us today that only some 534 or some 541, about 541 people have not got their jobs back. And the criteria or the reason why they've not gotten their jobs back is because these processes commenced after December 7th, 2024. That's the end. And also because they didn't follow the laid down processes for recruitment.
Exactly.
This is the only criteria that will make anyone not qualified to be called back or to be reinstated. And I think that this brings clarity to everyone out there who is still of the view that my appointment is terminated. For all those who had their appointment letter before December 7th, means that they are automatically qualified or reinstated to the extent that they follow the laid down processes. But it's clear that it is only those who got their appointment after December 7th, and then they did
not show evidence where there's no evidence of a declaration of a vacancy. There is no copy of an advertisement. There's no evidence of advertisement of the vacancy. There is no evidence of approved scheme for the service. There's no evidence of technical clearance. There's no evidence of financial clearance or evidence of interview or an appointment letter or an acceptance letter.
Let me clarify, just for the benefit of I'm sorry that I have to interject. There are those also whose processes started
before December 7th, but did not conclude before December 7th. For instance, you know that financial clearance takes a bit of time to get. So when they got to the financial clearance stage, it dragged. You cannot fault them for the delay. Those two were considered to be legitimate and were reinstated. But it is those whose processes started after December 7th, or who did not go through due process, no matter when the process started, who have been affected. But this has been done to correct a systemic problem.
Yeah. So that even if the process started after December 7th,
yes,
and there is evidence of a declaration of a vacancy,
there's evidence that
there is advertisement of the vacancy and all.
Indeed, that is what we were asking for.
All right.
We are never saying that you cannot employ after December, but don't rush it and circumvent lay down rules simply because that you are living a spot that.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is.
I was thinking that the other side of the caution that you may want to give to people in public office, I'm talking to Doc, will be that always comply with due process. Especially when you are doing this at the last minute. You've lost power. And suddenly, the people you couldn't find jobs for, you're trying to find jobs for them before you exit.
Yes, I mean, I agree that the fact that 2,200 people went through the process vindicate the point that the picture they were creating about this whole issue was wrong. Because they created a picture that every single person of the 2,000 persons were actually recruited without following due process. And I think that once you create that picture, it becomes political. And people will find a way back before elections. And in 2025, when I can make reference to the health insurance, they came to office and they terminated such appointments. Were those appointments part of the general 2,000? In any case, but those who the institution themselves have issued a termination letter to that effect, are they also now going to issue reinstatement, withdrawing their previous letter, terminating their appointments? Because these are not even, those were even period way before the election.
You are suggesting that there are people who are affected who are not part of the 2008 or so that went through the investigation, 2080 that went through the investigation. Is that your suggestion?
Yes, I'm saying that there were some persons who were not employed even in December. They got their employment.
I got that.
Yes.
I got that. But all I wanted to establish is that this committee looked at 2080 recruitments, appointments and promotions, right? And out of that number, 1,539 have sailed through.
Yes.
It is only 541 who have suffered a revocation.
Yeah, so what problem?
It is 1,201 who met the criteria. The 338 was just because of their status.
That one must be. It's assumptions who are probably to determine the time frame they use, whether they included November.
No, November. Again, if I may clarify for the benefit of Kabiru, the Chief of Staff's directive said any sort of employment after 7th December.
Good.
But I indicated that after that directive went out, we received petitions from persons who said that their appointments predated 7th December, yet they have been affected. That is why the Chief of Staff actually set up the committee, so that people do not act with impunity and victimize others unfairly.
All right.
That is all that this committee.
So you see, there is the minority. That means the minority concern is still legitimate, and that this report has not finally addressed that.
Which one?
Because there were some people whose appointments were withdrawn, and they were even in excess of the directive of the Chief of Staff. We drew attention of the country to that.
Yeah, so any directive that has come to the attention of the committee has been dealt with. Unless, of course, it hasn't come.
No. So that's the point I'm making. I'm making the point that the terms of reference of the committee was the fact that any appointment that was done, say, in December.
Yes.
And I know for a fact that people were employed in November. When this directive was issued, CEOs and MDs of the various MMDAs that were affected in this particular program actually issued termination letters to people, relying on the Chief of Staff's directive. And we even drew the attention to the fact that, look, you are going in excess of the Chief of Staff's directive.
Yeah, I think that has been saying
that. So if that has happened, it is most likely to have been corrected by this exercise.
Well,
but of course, let me also indicate that if there's anybody like that who has suffered unfairly and who believes that their appointment predated December 7th, who has not heard from the institutions or this way, they can bring it to the attention of government.
Well, so I'm happy with the assurance, given that they can, and I will be very, about qualification as of for and the minority in general is helping solve this thing. We would bring that to your attention. But you see, that until that happens, we are still having some challenge. And let me come to the 500 people. Look, with the greatest respect, minority will never support any person who is employed when the pre-down processes have not been followed. But can the committee probably get us to know that those institutions involved in this particular, so in the interest of transparency or in the interest of full disclosure, we know the respective institutions that actually went beyond trying to recruit those persons when elections have been declared. In any case, there's nothing wrong with recruiting people after the end of election, because the institution being concerned, the institution will go beyond the political power. The political.
So there's a list of 36, institutions.
I listed all of them.
Yes, that was given. So it's already out there.
So the list of 36 institutions are those who appeared.
Yes.
As he said.
Exactly.
But of those who appeared, out of the 36, which of them were disqualified? We don't, based on the basis of this particular criteria, because they are institutional recruitment. Mm-hmm. And it's not the individual who is initiating the recruitment.
Your question is that for the revocations,
exactly,
we should have.
Let me just conclude on this point that look, the lesson we are learning is that government should not do things in a manner just because there's a change in power. You are trying to put people into the payroll without necessary approval. That's the first thing. The second most important lesson is the characterization of such recruitment as unlawful, and then the decision to proceed on that basis to terminate them. And that decision by the government to terminate this contract has caused the nation losses. And I think that these losses that it is causing us could have been avoided by the fact that the government could have decided to hold on with the process, institute inquiry, and tell that those people report to whereby when we determined at the end of the day that your appointment was unlawful, we terminate it. And I think that was been the decent, the conduct with which they would have done it would have been all right.
So yes, baby at Kabiru can is not entirely wrong. It's true. Menam for 2 suffered that petroleum hub Kumasi office. I'm glad you go office. No, they were employed way before December election. They suffered it. In fact, Masasa me for them is Pixel 7 Pro. Come inside the day me show me test me come show be a chemo. Say me show 9. Masasa phone me lose a lot of sa me test no. There are other people I mean my employ 2023 who suffered it. So I am glad fellas didn't defend it and make it seem as if say no correct. Sometimes authority make any information be want implement, they are too overzealous and they do certain things which are not even stated by the appointing authority or the chief of staff in this case. So for me, the reason I'm doing this video is that if you are part of it, man must send them a complaint in ABBR. I didn't act on it because I didn't know where to go. But the fellas say if indeed you were employed, you went through all the processes before 7th December 2025, petition the chief of staff. Come together and see the government. I'll support it. Because Mr. Time I can say, to me, process be the employee banner any event. So you can start the process in 2024 January. It will conclude in December, May. So it doesn't necessarily mean that person was employed after the election. So if conditional clause, I applaud the chief of staff so he say in fact, look at the people who would have been affected. 1,002 they would have affected. So I come back to what I'm saying. Maybe there may be other people who maybe when another committee is set up to maybe look at it holistically, not just the mandate of December banner. Maybe those people will also have their job. Because I know some of them. And my example, Petroleum Kumasi office. If they are on this channel, may share me a video and mobile testing on Facebook. If you're on this channel, you can leave the comment there. If indeed you were employed before December 7th, went through all the process, interview, advertise time, BBR, correct, NFL is kind, all the 7-8 process will be BBR petition. If nothing has been done, you can see. It's your right for employment because me and I make point in this a process, an event. Unless the process started in 7th December, that is wrong. Because you can also not just balloon the public sector and expect the next government to come and pay. MPP I want here, NDC want here. So for that, morally, though the government still has the mandate, because 7th December, Kufuor was still the commander in chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. He is still in government, but it's only that's why I have the transition. Why did they create it? For you to know everything that is happening. Since that time, President Mama received security briefing. So even per convention, which is not a constitution, per convention, we agree that there's an incoming president who must have security briefing the same as the president, the current president. So in that spirit of light, if you are ballooning the public sector, it may create issues for them. So I agree on that. But I'm only saying that I think there are some people who are overzealous in the system and might have wrongly terminated appointment of other people who were not supposed to be part of it. And if you are a victim of it, please take the government through the process and let them review it for you. If it's so, because payment checks, they are still going through the motions. Or maybe so quickly you can also come together and do that. And Bakubi Swamp NEIP. Oh, say Siana Serikeji. Ain't make kind of mamma, Momomina Hono. MPP for no, and then we come kakra. Then Kotsi and say, near to cut tabletop. Almost now for almost 6 years. Yan rectified them. Me de be ambulance to move. Obediatem, me mechanical collateral. Oh, NEIP. Me say NEIP ni NIA. Mueni na ho. Those agencies, the employment is type. So when you say tabletop na oje contract and you full employment mueni hwe ba bi fufuro. Na so be ko school na fa pagya am. Ko ha omo di NEIP no National Entrepreneurship Development. Omo di 6 years na omo di tabletop. The senior man be pa o kan de chana no di tabletop so me na ko febu sun cancer science say tabletop near the amount. So if you know you are part of this under this NDC gamam do akoshe ho bi na say ya, let your CEO no friends Eric J rectify it. Esa abans sounds on be chiro. That is the truth. Me peko NEIP and NIA. So that is the update on these two. Momo rectify. If not, a baby, I will share what the security crime about not me because no MPP and this year you were there. Me need any enjoyment in that. But I'm grateful to the chief of staff. Said some of us who raised the issue, apparently they were doing background work from Akroma Rain State. Okay, 1,005 of them. So that's almost 70%, 75%. Because 2,075% will be 1,500. Over 75% of them will be reinstated. 500 now can, if you are part, now so genuine concern. Go again. On shoot if you make 2023 for the minimum number of lost come from a catcher. If you watch this video, let me know. Go back, if possible. See. Court to see just you believe that you be wrongfully terminated, and in court you had this evidence. So court you go say, oh, the ceremony there be may family say me letter the family appointment date ni, and if it's before December 7th, there's nothing wrong because December 7th there was a government in place. If it's before, but if it's after, nah boa. All that I can say that sorry. Na ma mo hona American ratification, ratification of shana nya year pe be fa. Once you do copiation to election, that is the news I have for you. I don't know what to make of it. Feel free to share your view in the comment section. We are now subscribe. Most subscriber click the bell notification. The video be tuma ubehu nuwati mashiba ha. Critical analysis and show. So be show musi ye mame mihiao. O my Ghana and we here. Bye bye.